In spiritual practice, it is common for people to refer to deep, profound tantric practices, deep mystical practices, invocations, um, earth groundings, and the such like. And these are, of themselves, incredibly powerful and important techniques. And many of them are quite ancient, although their common practice is relatively new for us, as there is a great spiritual awakening in the West as we shake off the heavy waters of the age of Pisces and move into the far more challenging age of Aquarius. And within many spiritual traditions and practices is the art of herbalism. In the Tibetan tradition, for instance, herbalism is taken to quite profound levels, as the making of incenses is a high art within the Tibetan tradition. And in fact, many Tibetan incenses can be used medicinally as well as burnt incense. But within the Western tradition, there are ancient connections to the applied spirituality that connects us to the earth, to the cycles of life. And within this, herbalism is a field of study that ebbs and flows a little bit, but is gaining quite a rebirth at the moment, especially in its esoteric and spiritual manifestations. A herb that I have been using very much recently and have been very aware of for many, many, many years is this wonderful herb, which is Dittany of Crete. Its uses possibly go back to the Bronze Age, maybe to the age, maybe even earlier, but we definitely know it goes back to the Bronze Age. And if you're a woman, this is a herb that was a very powerful part of your armory. And if you were a midwife, this was a crucial member of your pharmacopoeia. In ancient times, the Cretan dictamos was also called Artemide, which gives the plant the name of the goddess who was wounding by poisoned arrows. In fact, the statue of the goddess Artemis, who among other things was the protector of women giving birth, wore a wreath of dittany on her head. Also in antiquity, Dittany was considered capable of fighting back iron bows from wounded bodies. In fact, the use of iron bows hints at the incredible ancientness of this tradition, as iron was always considered the enemy of the Fae, or the old folk. And according to the ancient writers, this herb claimed that this herb became known from the wild goats of Crete, the Capra aegrus, or the Cretan Capricorns. And when they were wounded and the arrow remained in their body, ate dittany, and they claimed it fell immediately. In fact, Aristotle, in his work on animal history, goes even further to talk about the pain-killing and healing properties of Dittany, though he does not mention that it causes iron arrows to magically fall from your body. However, it's possible that they were used simply to heal open wounds, which we do know it was used for. Dittany as a herb has been known since the early Minoan period, when the Minoans made perfumes and ointments from the herbs, which they used to heal wounds, as well as to make aromatic oils of Dittany, mainly with olive oil, which olive trees grow profusely in Crete, and they would offer these to their gods, to their kings, to their priestesses, and to their priests. Aromatic wines, such as Dictamnite wine, are mentioned by Dioscurides in his 5th book on the matter of medicine. And the oils made from the herb had a tonic and stimulating properties. In fact, Dioscurides, as well as Pliny, refer to it as an aphrodisiac, as a herb that inclines the goddess of love, Aphrodite, to look kindly upon you. Pliny claims that the plant called Dittany grows nowhere else but on Crete. And Theophrastus, in his work on plants stories, says also Dittany is a plant that grows only in Crete. The reality is that it does grow in other places, but it's quite possible that its origin is in Crete, and certainly that Dittany that is grown in Crete is particularly effective. Hippocrates, in his book on female nature, calls it okitokion. This is a compound word from okis, meaning fast, quick, and tokos, meaning childbirth. And one of its first uses was to speed up childbirth. It would then be used as a healing herb and as a painkiller, though I do not recommend that the amateur herbalist uses it in this way without the advice of an experienced herbalist or a traditional midwife. And if your midwife comes from Crete, you can be guaranteed she definitely knows how to use this herb safely. The ancient poet Virgil writes in his Aeneid that when Aeneas, the son of Aphrodite, was wounded in the Trojan War, Aphrodite ran to Crete to collect Dittany from Siloritis and to put it on his wounds to heal. And that Dittany did its miracle. Aeneas was healed, and he was able then to take the refugees from Troy to Rome to establish Rome. Byzantium, the Byzantine Empire and Constantinople imported from Crete huge amounts of this plant for the preparation of its ointments. And certainly in Middle Ages Europe, Trappists and Benedictine monks used it to make a liquor that bore their name, such as Trappistine and Benedictine, which have Dittany in them, as does vermouth and chartreuse. So if you really, really like your dry martinis, you're taking part in taking Dittany, and it is certainly a fitting libation as such to both the deities Artemis as well as to the deity Persephone. Cretan folk medicine still uses it in decoctions. They boil it virtually as a cure-all. In the flu of 1918 in Heraklion, the well-known folklorist Invergalia Fragaki informs us there actually was a factory that made and sold anti-influenza oil that was essentially a mixture of laurel, oregano, sage, and dittany. And that it was also used for abrasions according to the recommendations of doctors. This, of course, is at a period of time before antibiotics, when any help you could get to fight infections was certainly to be embraced. When used in magical workings, dittany is often burnt to help with the visualization of spirits, or for the evocation of spirit animals. Spirit animal traditions being really quite common. And in doing any workings with Venusian energy, or the energy of Venus. There are 2 references to dittany being used as an offering in burnt incense to Hathor, one from a Middle Kingdom source and the other from the Greek magical papyrus in one of the lesser commentaries on it, where it talks about using herbs to create incenses by which you can evoke your daemons. And we do know that it is still used in folk medicine for this purpose. For those of you who are demonological in your leanings, I have found that dittany is very useful in appealing to Boon as an offering to Boon, Boon being a daemon very strongly connected with Venus. And I have included it, for instance, in the spirit pot that I have to Boon, where I offer that to Venusian energies. It is also useful in burning when offering to the Nagas, to the serpent spirits of water. Dittany is much more easier to get these days, and in fact you can source very good organic dittany grown in either your own country, but also you can easily order dittany from Crete itself. It itself is an incredibly beautiful plant if you really like plants from desert or arid environments, which I personally do. They have a delicate beauty rather than being lush. But as a herb, its value is incredibly important. And as a herb, it is a good way to start your journey into exploring the mystical and magical uses of this herb, but also in the use of this herb for the promotion of health. And in a world where connecting with the earth is front and center, especially as old trends are fighting back against the growing consciousness of nature, as a herb, it can be a very good entryway to connecting and use as Venusian energy is a powerful energy. It is an energy connected to water, to the emotions, to nurturing, but also to evoking gentle spirits that connect one to the very, very ancient divinities, such as Aphrodite, who is incredibly ancient, Artemis, who herself predates the Greek period, but also to connect to ancient Minoan spirituality, where this herb was very much used for purification and for blessing. Making Dittany water as a way of purifying ourselves before doing sacred works is one that allows you to get in contact with your emotions. For men, it can be a very useful way of connecting both to our own feminine side, but also to connecting with these powerful and ancient female divinities. And so, if you are wishing to evoke Venusian energy, to connect with the divine feminine, especially the divine feminine of Aphrodite, whose connection to Crete is important, but also to Artemis, then Dittany is your go-to herb. If you have a more male leaning, then Dittany also works, because within ancient Greek tradition, Dittany was a gift of the god Zeus to the island of Crete as his way of thanking them for allowing it to be the place where he was born and raised as a babe. This possibly hints at a softer, more gentler side to Zeus than the one that we tend to see in the anime style manifestations of myth these days. But if you are wishing to connect to these energies, then I certainly heartily recommend that you explore the lore, the myth, and the uses of Dittany of Crete, a valuable ancient herb whose uses in cooking, pharmacology, and spirituality resonates throughout the ages. I am Dr. Shimon de Valencia, and I am the Merry Mystic, and I wish you joy in your journey. Namaste.